Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We're at 11135 Southwest Novaire Place here in Tigard. I describe everything as if you're standing in the street facing the front of the home. We are currently on the left side of the house. We are about, 3/4 of the way back here. This clean out sticks way out of the ground. You can't miss the thing. It's like 4 feet tall. Big 3-inch ABS clean out is going to be our point of access. We're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water is currently running. We're going to zero out the foot counter here in just a moment. Get some cobwebs cleared off this camera lens and we'll be on our way. Alright, we're going to zero out here at the base of the clean out. And just right out of the gate, that is a superbly clean flow line. That is exactly how you want your sewer line to look right there. And the big main habit that keeps your line clean like this, obviously you want to keep improper stuff out of the line, wipes, paper towels, even flushable wipes. I mean, I put those in the improper category. The big one though is cooking oil and grease. Fats in general going down your kitchen sink drain is typically where they come from. This house is doing a magnificent job. That or no humans have even lived here. I'm not sure. It's crazy clean. Now we're starting to finally see a little bit of, just a little bit of gunk in the line. Anyway, it does a great deal to improve flow. I've done over 25,000 scopes, tons and tons of drain cleaning, and grease is a very common culprit and contributing factor to blockages, especially ones that result in a full-on backup. Blockages happen more frequently than most people realize. It's very common for me to see spots in lines where you can tell a blockage occurred because you can see a little bit of a deposit at the top of the pipe, but it's isolated to that one area. That's a blockage that blocked up and then it busted loose under head pressure or disintegration. So when you get grease in your line, it acts like glue and it causes stuff to hang up in the line that otherwise wouldn't. And it's much more likely that run-of-the-mill kind of rinky-dink blockages that would generally break loose on their own can turn into full-on sewer events. But keeping your line grease-free makes it much more forgiving under circumstances where the line is being abused to some extent. A moment ago, the line transitioned over to concrete pipe, and that right there is the main lateral connection at about 80, back up here a little bit, about 87 feet. Now we're going to go locate the camera head really quick just to verify where the line terminates. And we'll pull back in here once everything's drained off and get a better view of everything. As far as flow goes, the line undoubtedly has good flow of the main lateral. I'll get a better view. Mostly the spots I want to take a closer look at are in the concrete pipe just prior to it. Concrete pipe in general is just more susceptible to issues. Mostly just because of the age that it is. Alright, didn't have any luck there locating. I honestly didn't really have much hope that I would out front. I don't think the line, it's possible it goes out of the street in front. I think it's unlikely. Just because of the, just the natural gradation of the property here would make far more sense to take advantage of the hillside and go down the hill. A little bit of standing water there just before the connection to the main. Very, very minor standing water. That right there is maybe 6 inches of pipe. There's still a little bit of water trickling through the line too. I just did a toilet flush a moment ago just to help clear anything out that may have been in the line. But from basically, I'll write it up from about 86 to 87 feet there. It's not even that long of a section. You've got about a 1/16 of an inch of water. That's a long ways off from the kind of stuff I'm looking for to recommend as far as bellies go. And for reference, I don't generally even consider repairs on bellies until there's at least a a 5-foot section of pipe at minimum with at least an inch of standing water in it. That's with no water running at all. Some big hunk of junk right there. That was part of the thing. I might go do one more flush here to see if I can get that to break loose. Anyway, and going back to what I was saying there about my breaking point for bellies, I generally only recommend repairs on bellies like that, or worse, when they're very close proximity to the home and or underneath it. You start getting standing, even at the last, honestly, 10 feet of this line here were nothing but standing water top to bottom, all the way to the top of the sewer line, the likelihood it would result in a backup is extremely low with the kind of configuration you have here. The amount of downhill run you've got, amount of gravity working in your favor, it would be almost impossible unless the line was being heavily abused. And what that looks like, just looking at it right up close, it almost appears to be, I think this line has been updated. It almost looks like a piece of old concrete pipe, and it's possible it's from the old repair or update that was done. That's my assumption anyway, just looking at the age or what the appearance of the age of this house looks like relative to the pipe materials we're seeing in most of the line. But that does happen sometimes. The line, when they go to kind of break the old line out of the way to put the new one in place, sometimes a piece of it will chip off and get down line. That's kind of what that looks like there. It looks like a little piece of pipe. I think I got part of that thing to move. I did a couple toilet flushes from upstairs from the topmost floor to give it as much oomph as possible. Whatever that little chunk of pipe was, looks like it cleared out of there. What's left over, sorry for the visual there, looks like a human waste. That will eventually move on its way. Anyway, I wanted to look immediately underneath that little thing just to make sure it wasn't potentially a piece of pipe that had peeled away from the line we're currently in. It looks like something that must have come from something that occurred in the past, which I frequently will see that kind of stuff on old homes that have had some level of updating done to them. Very common thing to see, for instance, in cast iron pipe that's been updated. You'll get pieces of it that chip off and fall down into the line during a update process and will kind of tumble their way through the line or get rusted in place. Alrighty, all the concrete pipe there, all of it appears to be intact. It's in fair condition for its age. There's some level of exposed aggregate there, but not majorly so. And it's not going to have the same level of effect. Heavy aggregate, this isn't heavy at this point, but because of how much gravity precedes this spot here, this is one of those parts of the line that will have less effect than the average home as it gets rougher. But on that note, with the advent of trenchless repair systems these days, especially if this line shoots off through the neighbor's yard, you know, it's a good idea to keep an eye on older pipe like this. I recommend scoping it periodically, like every 2 years, to monitor for any changes. Nothing lasts for forever. And you know, as it relates to taking advantage of trenchless repairs, not every line it makes sense on, but you want to keep an eye on things periodically. When a line starts wearing out, especially once it becomes exposed to the ground, the pipe joints are usually the first thing that starts to wear out in concrete. The line can start allowing dirt and groundwater to flow into it once it gets to that point, and it can cause hydro erosion. The line can actually start eroding the support out from underneath it by pulling it through the line. Little bit of a partial separation there is what I would call that. There's a little bit of gapping between the joint. And there's obviously some cobwebs up there at the top. You can see all the spider egg sacs, and that is a common thing you see anytime you have spacing between a joint, because it's a good anchoring point for cobwebs or spiders to build their web. I'm not seeing a lot of signs there that joint is open to the ground. There's a little bit of brown substance at the top of the pipe, but being that we're on a hard vertical dive like this, it's not uncommon for water and debris to actually lift off the bottom of the pipe when it goes down these hard runs like this, especially a toilet flush. You get just a huge chunk of water barreling down the line like that. It's not weird at all for stuff to splash up and hit the top of the pipe. in a configuration like this. So with as little as is showing there, all the stringy stuff I'm looking at there all appears to be cobwebs. You know, I'll notate that on the report. There's a partial separation at the joint, but I don't see any strong signs that joint is open to the ground, and it's certainly not affecting flow. Anyway, got sidetracked there talking to, once we saw this joint. So going back to the concrete pipe, any pipe material at all, when a line starts to cause hydro erosion, it can cause settling to the line. You can start getting bellies, offset joints, things like that. When that process takes place, it gets too far gone, you can sometimes lose the ability to do an epoxy liner or something trenchless like that. I'm going to pull back in here a little further, and then I'm going to try and locate again to get an idea as to where the line heads off here. There's a good chance I'm not going to be able to necessarily get right on top of where the line terminates at the main. The city should have record of that, should you be interested in hunting it down, but the line likely jaunts off through neighbors' properties. That's a very common thing in this part of town. And it looks like the line's heading to the rear of the property. I think it's actually shooting around the left side fence line. As when I walk to the back of the property near that left side fence line, I start to pick up a signal, but I can tell it's on the other side of the fence. It looks like we've dropped off the hillside down into the neighbors, the house directly to the left of this one. And just following the turns here, I'm trying to visually as best I can. It looks like I'll try and show the camera where I think this thing ends up at. Alright. Finally, I've got enough locates here I can get on top of that one. I'll show the kind of the rough direction the line heads to here. And based on the distance we just ran there, it looks like the line's going to be terminating right around where the neighbor's fence line is at in their backyard. And again, that's the house directly to the left of this home. That's as you face this house from the street. So with the orientation of facing the front of this house from the street in mind, here's the clean out. There's the fence gate. This is on the left side of the house here. That leads you into the backyard. So the line here is shooting right between where this fence ends, this kind of gap here. It's harder to see right now, and if you're not here in person, the depth is hard to tell on the camera. But it drops off through that spacing there, and you can kind of see or make out the fence line straight away from us. That brown wall you see there is the neighbor's fence line. It either is heading towards that part of the fence line, or the line may actually turn and kind of curve towards it's kind of heading towards the rear left corner of the neighbor's fence line there, or their back of their property. It may be terminating up against the actual rear part of the fence line or the left side, but kind of near that back left corner approximately. There's so many fence lines and everything between here and there. It's just not a spot I can go over there and just locate easily, but that's the direction it's heading off. So I would certainly keep my eyes peeled through title. Generally, when you have a line like this, there is going to be some kind of easement in place that allows for the line to be there, and or in the event of a repair being needed, it allows you the ability to do that. Alright, I'm going to push back to the foundation wall here for just a second. I mostly focus on everything that's buried underground that you need a camera for once you get through this foundation wall here. This is stuff, I believe this is on crawl space, and the home inspector can take a look at it. but I will keep running back here within reason. Alright. We're well back inside the house here. It looks like your ABS plastic going back in. These are some seriously clean living homeowners. Sometimes homeowners these days are more savvy and they'll do a hydrojet on their line to clean it up prior to the sale. The one part of the line that never gets jetted though is the interior, so sometimes you'll get this crazy clean exterior line like you have here, but the interior will usually show you how things really were. These folks have been living clean as can be. There is no buildup.